In the fathomless depths of space, where starlight flickers as faint streaks against the void, the Vaxillan Empire reigned supreme, an unstoppable tempest of power. With a colossal war fleet, they had subjugated over 200 star systems, forcing ancient civilizations to kneel before their overwhelming might. To the Vaxillan, humanity was nothing more than a swarm of insects on a backwater planet, clumsily stumbling into the cosmos with their primitive ships. But then, in one fateful moment, they made the gravest mistake in their history. They kidnapped Ethan Carter. Picture this: a gleaming armada of thousands of warships hovering in the void, smug in their belief that they held the galaxy in their claws. Yet, in mere days, this mighty empire would tremble before a 12-year-old human kid with a mischievous glint in his eye and a busted pair of headphones. This isn't just a tale of war, it's the story of how humanity taught the universe a lesson it would never forget. You won't be able to tear your eyes away from what happens next. Ethan Carter had no idea that day would change everything. He was sprawled out on the patchy grass in his backyard, the late afternoon sun dipping low over the quiet suburbs of Ohio. A pair of beat-up headphones hugged his ears, salvaged from his dad's cluttered garage, one wire frayed, but still blaring the raucous rock tunes he loved. In his hands was a homemade drone, a scrappy little thing he'd spent a month piecing together from cheap online parts and a few borrowed bits from the neighbor's lawnmower. He fiddled with its propellers, trying to tweak it to fly higher, his lips mumbling along to Sweet Child O' Mine by Guns N' Roses. Suddenly, the air around him quivered in a way that felt wrong. It wasn't the hum of an engine or the rush of a strong wind, it was deeper, primal, as if space itself was being twisted. Ethan looked up, frowning, his grip tightening on the drone. "What the hell?" he muttered, half expecting it was just a plane from the nearby military base. But then came a sharp, muted crack, not loud, but enough to startle him into dropping the remote. Reality warped around him, space bent, light fractured like a shattered lens, and before he could yell, darkness swallowed him whole. When Ethan's eyes snapped open again, the backyard was gone. He floated weightless in midair, suspended in a vast chamber of sleek, gray-black metal. Dim light spilled from glowing panels overhead, casting eerie, elongated shadows across the floor. Towering around him were creatures easily 8 feet tall, their hard, chitinous shells glinting faintly in the gloom. Each had 4 arms, tipped with razor-sharp claws, and instead of a single pair of eyes, 6 crimson orbs lined their faces horizontally, staring at him with unblinking intensity. A pungent, fishy stench hit his nose, faintly reminiscent of shrimp left too long on the kitchen counter whenever his mom tried a new recipe. His drone hovered in front of him, lifeless now, emitting a feeble buzz like a dying insect. Ethan's eyes darted around, his heart pounding as he tried to piece together what was happening. But it wasn't fear driving that rhythm. He'd binged enough sci-fi movies to have a hunch about this. "You guys are aliens, right?" he asked bluntly, his voice wavering slightly, but laced with a mix of curiosity and defiance. The Vaxillan didn't answer immediately. They stood motionless, studying him like a specimen under a microscope. Then the largest among them stepped forward, its massive frame like a living statue, its metallic sheen catching the light. This was Kresthar, commander of the warship Dreadspire, a seasoned warrior who'd led the Vaxillan fleet to conquer countless systems. His voice rumbled forth, deep and resonant like thunder rolling through the void, dripping with the arrogance of one accustomed to giving orders. "You are Ethan Carter," he declared, not a question, but a statement, as if he already knew everything about the boy. "Offspring of Admiral James Carter, leader of humanity's military forces. You will cooperate with us, or face the consequences." Ethan raised an eyebrow, tugging one headphone off to hear better. The alien had just name-dropped his dad, Admiral James Carter, a figure Ethan mostly knew through his mom's stories and the rare visits home in a uniform bristling with medals. He shrugged, forcing a calm he didn't entirely feel, though his mind was a jumble. Yeah, okay, that sounds pretty badass, he said, voice steady as a rock. But do you guys have anything decent to eat? I mean, this shrimp boiled too long smell is making me starving as hell. Got any fries? Or at least a burger? The room fell into a stunned silence. The Vaxilin froze, their red eyes blinking rapidly as if their brains couldn't process what they'd heard. For millennia, they'd encountered the same predictable reactions from other species: screams of terror, desperate pleas, overwhelming despair. But this kid, a scrawny human child with messy brown hair and a Metallica t-shirt, gawked at them like they were slow delivery drivers and had the gall to ask for food. A faint hiss rippled from the creatures behind Krezthar, maybe confusion or irritation, but Ethan didn't care. Krezthar tilted his head, his facial claws twitching with annoyance. He wasn't used to this kind of treatment. You do not grasp your situation, little one, he growled, trying to reassert his dominance. We are the Vaxilin rulers of the galaxy. Your father will kneel before us when he learns we hold you. Your kind are mere vermin, and you will be the tool we use to break their will. Ethan let out a loud, snorting laugh that echoed through the cold metal chamber, making a few smaller Vaxilin flinch back. My dad, he said, wiping tears from his eyes as he cackled. Yeah, he once punched a guy twice his size in the face just for spilling coffee on the breakfast table. I'd bet good money you'll regret even thinking about making him kneel. He's not exactly the groveling type. Ethan's words weren't just childish bravado, they carried an odd, unshakable confidence, as if he knew exactly who his dad was and what was coming. Krezthar felt a chill creep up his spine, though he refused to admit it. The Vaxilin's intel on humans was thin. They saw humanity as a feeble species, barely stepping into the stars with crude ships and outdated tech. But this kid wasn't scared. No tears, no trembling, just mocking defiance. It threw Krezthar off balance. He gestured to a subordinate, a smaller creature with a dull gray shell named Vextor. Check the data again, Krezthar ordered, his voice low but urgent. Are we certain we took the right target? Vextor scrambled to a floating console, holographic light flaring as he ran the DNA scan again. Confirmed, Commander, Vextor replied, his voice shaky. This is Ethan Carter, son of Admiral James Carter. No errors. Krezthar turned back to Ethan, his red eyes narrowing. You're not afraid, are you, little one? He asked, probing for a crack in the boy's bravado. Ethan shrugged again, fiddling with the drone still hovering in front of him. Afraid? Nah, I've watched Independence Day at least 5 times. Big ships, weird faces, cool voices, you're straight out of the villain playbook. But villains always lose in the end. I'm just waiting to see what you do next. Ethan's words slapped Krezthar's pride like a wet rag. He'd led countless campaigns, faced the fiercest foes the galaxy had to offer, but never a prisoner like this. He took a deep breath, forcing calm. Prepare the transmission, he commanded Vextor. We'll show the humans what they've lost and the price they'll pay. Ethan leaned back, though there was no chair to lean on, just floating in zero gravity, arms crossed like he was settling in for a movie. Fine by me, he said, smirking. But fair warning, you're about to kick a hornet's nest. After Ethan's half-joking, half-serious warning, the tension in the holding chamber aboard the Dread Spire thickened like a storm about to break. Krezthar, supreme commander of the Vaxilin fleet, turned away from the boy, his crimson eyes blazing with frustration and doubt. He couldn't fathom why a human child, a creature deemed fit only for slavery or annihilation by every intelligence report, could stand before him without a shred of fear. With a sweep of his clawed arm, he barked at his crew. Project our fleet's image, he growled, his voice reverberating through the metallic expanse. Let this brat see what he's up against. A sharp hiss sounded as the holographic console sprang to life. From the chamber's center, a massive 3D projection bloomed, dominating the space. It was the Vaxilin fleet, thousands of warships stretching across the endless dark of space, their sleek hulls gleaming like polished obsidian, armed with energy cannons capable of obliterating planets in mere volleys. Gargantuan cruisers loomed like steel behemoths, while smaller fighters darted like predatory fish. This wasn't just a fleet, it was a symbol of invincible power, a silent decree that the Vaxilin ruled the galaxy unchallenged. Krezdar stepped closer to Ethan, his hulking form blotting out part of the hologram's light. "This is your reality, Ethan Carter," he snarled, aiming to crush the boy with his sheer presence. "We are the Vaxilin. None defy us and live. Your father, your species' fleet, all will crumble to ash before our might. You're just a pawn in a greater game. Cooperate, and we might let you linger a bit longer." Ethan squinted at the hologram, arms still crossed in his weightless drift. He tilted his head, sizing up the fleet with the casual interest of a kid watching a toy commercial, intrigued, but not blown away. After a few seconds of silence, he let out a long whistle that bounced around the quiet room. "Pretty dope," he said, voice flat as ever. "You've got a ton of giant ships, huh? But, don't you ever think about doing something fun with them? Maybe host spaceship races or put on some alien ship expos. Right now, it's like you're just showing off old toys, cool to look at, but kinda boring." Ethan's words hit Krezdar's pride like a brick through a window. The Vaxilin officers behind him started hissing oddly, maybe their version of confusion or anger. A few red eyes blinked rapidly, as if they couldn't believe their ears. Krezdar's head tilted, his facial claws trembling harder. "You dare mock our fleet?" he asked, his voice dropping into a menacing rumble. Ethan shrugged, twiddling the busted headphones floating beside him. "Not really mocking," he said, still chill as ice. "Just being real. You've got all this awesome stuff, and all you do is fight with it? Seems like a waste. I've got an old gaming console at home. I modded it to run 4K movies. Maybe try something creative, like slapping rock music speakers on your ships. Bet it'd be way more fun." Vextor, Krezdar's aide, couldn't hold back anymore. He stepped forward, his voice hissing with skepticism. "Are we sure we nabbed the right kid, Commander?" he asked, his tiny eyes flicking from Ethan to Krezdar. "The data says Admiral James Carter's son is a strategic asset. But this one, he doesn't act like a key hostage. He's more like an idiot." Krezdar snarled, shooting Vextor a glare that could melt steel. "Recheck the data," he snapped, his tone low but laced with fury. Vextor fumbled with the console, his clawed fingers racing over the touchpad. The hologram flared again as the DNA scan reappeared. "Confirmed again, Commander," Vextor said, voice quivering. "This is Ethan Carter. No mistakes. DNA matches Admiral Carter's profile perfectly." Ethan caught the exchange and smirked. "Told ya," he said, slipping one headphone back on, though it wasn't playing anything. He crossed his arms like he was settling in for a long show. "But if you think snagging me was a smart move, go right ahead. I'll just chill here and wait." Krezdar felt rage flare in his chest, but he tamped it down. He couldn't let a kid shake his authority in front of his crew. "You won't be laughing long," he said, voice icy. "Prepare a transmission to Earth. We'll show his father where he is and the cost of defiance." Vextor nodded, swiftly activating the interstellar comms. A second large screen flickered to life beside the fleet hologram, lights pulsing as the signal beamed out. On Earth, at the United Humanity Command, the meeting room went dead silent as the Vaxilin signal came through. Admiral James Carter, a towering man with salt and pepper hair and a battle-scarred face, stood at the center. Arms crossed, his steely blue eyes locked onto the screen as Krezdar's image appeared. "This is Krezdar, commander of the Dread Spire of the Vaxilin Empire." Krezdar's voice boomed over the comms, deep and commanding. "We hold your son, Ethan Carter, in our grasp. Surrender unconditionally. Deliver your fleet, or he dies. This is your only warning." The screen shifted, showing Ethan floating in the holding chamber. He was tinkering with his drone, spinning a broken propeller, muttering under his breath. When he noticed the camera, he looked up and grinned. "Hey, Dad, these guys suck," he said, casual as if he were on a video call. "They gave me some purple crap that smells like sewage. Handle this quick, will ya? I gotta fix my drone. Oh, and grab something tasty on the way back, I'm starving." James Carter said nothing for a beat. The officers around him, used to his stern demeanor, exchanged shocked glances as a slow grin spread across his face. Then he laughed, a low, dangerous sound, like a beast about to break free. He leaned toward the screen, eyes glinting with unmistakable excitement. "Listen up, you cosmic shrimp freaks," James said, his voice cold as steel but thick with menace. "You just grabbed the wrong ticking time bomb. You've got 18 hours to send him back in one piece, or I'll turn your homeworld into a parking lot. Choose, and choose wisely." Krezthar cut the feed, the screen going dark in an instant. He spun back to Ethan, his red eyes narrowing. "Your father's insane," he said, his tone sinking into an accusation. Ethan smirked, his grin now tinged with mischief and pride. "Yeah, but he's the cool kind of insane," he shot back. "You're screwed, no lie. Hurry up with whatever you're doing, I want to see the next part." Krezthar stood motionless, and for the first time in his conquest-filled career, a real thread of unease wove into his mind. He didn't know that, across the void, Earth was already mobilizing, and the storm coming their way would be unlike anything the Vaxilin had ever faced. After Admiral James Carter's chilling threat, the signal from the Dreadspire severed, leaving a tense void in its wake. On Earth, news of Ethan Carter's kidnapping spread faster than light. Within hours, #FreeEthan rocketed to the top of every social media platform, from Twitter to the fledgling intergalactic forums humanity had just joined. News channels looped footage of Ethan floating in the Vaxilin cell, captions screaming, "Humanity won't forgive." Crowds flooded the streets, hoisting signs like, "Don't mess with humans," and "Give Ethan back now." Major arms companies Lockheed Martin, Raytheon announced double shifts to churn out more ships and weapons, no official orders needed. A toy company even rushed out an Ethan's Cosmic Adventure model, complete with the tagline, "One kid, one fleet, one victory." At United Humanity Command, the atmosphere defied the norms of a war briefing. Instead of dread or tension, the control room buzzed with a strange energy excitement laced with boiling rage. Admiral James Carter stood at the center, hands planted on the briefing table, eyes locked on a holographic map of the solar system. "Ready the fleet," he ordered, voice hard as iron. "No talks. No waiting. We're getting Ethan back and teaching those alien bastards a lesson they'll never forget." A young officer, still green and wide-eyed, hesitated with a raised hand. "Sir, shouldn't we try negotiating first? I mean, it's your son." His words died as James shot him a look sharp enough to cut steel. "Negotiate," James echoed, voice dropping into a lethal growl. "The Vaxilin don't get negotiation. They get strength, and they're about to taste it." Meanwhile, aboard the lead ship of the human fleet, Unbreakable, Admiral Maria Voss stood on the bridge, watching the battle formation take shape. Petite but commanding, with cropped white hair and eagle-sharp eyes, she oversaw a fleet that wasn't the galaxy's largest, far outmatched by the Vaxilin in numbers and tech. But today, it moved with singular purpose, a blazing resolve. "I'd bet those shrimp freaks have no clue what they've stirred up," she said, smirking at her aide. "This isn't just war, it's humanity's grand performance." As the Vaxilin fleet breached the solar system, they used confidence that crushing humanity would be child's play. Over 2,000 warships aligned in perfect formation, their energy cannons glowing, primed to fire. From the Dreadspire bridge, Krezthar peered at the tactical display, his red eyes gleaming with arrogance. "The humans will beg in ours," he declared to his crew. They stand no chance against our power. But as the Vaxilin ships crossed Jupiter's orbit, a bizarre signal blared from Earth. Not a formal declaration or military threat, but a middle-aged man leaning against a beat-up truck, its roof-mounted speaker crackling. He wore a baseball cap and a garish Hawaiian shirt, a beer can in hand. "Hey, alien pals," he shouted into a mic, cheerful as if hosting a weekend barbecue. "Welcome to Earth, where you're about to have a real shitty day. Buckle up." The signal cut, and the assault hit like a thunderclap. The human fleet didn't follow any conventional tactics the Vaxilin knew. Instead of lining up for a head-on slugfest, they unleashed a barrage of massive tungsten rods from orbit, rods from God, dropped at hypersonic speeds. They punched through Vaxilin hulls like meteor showers, each impact erupting in explosions that shredded cruisers into scrap. A Vaxilin mothership barely powered up its guns before 3 rods slammed into it, turning it into a blazing fireball in the void. That was just the start. Human pilots, ignoring safe distances, charged into enemy lines with compact ships rigged with jetpacks. They leapt onto Vaxilin vessels, slicing through armor with handheld plasma guns, storming inside like space pirates. One pilot, over an open comms channel, yelled, "Who's got $20 on me taking down a mothership before dinner? Ramirez, you owe me a beer." Laughter cut through the blasts, underscored by the screeching guitars of AC/DC's Highway to Hell blaring from ship-mounted speakers. On the Dreadspire S bridge, Krezdar stood frozen before the tactical screen. His fleet, the pride of the Vaxilin Empire, was dissolving into chaos. They're laughing," he stammered, his clawed hands gripping the chair's edge. "Aren't they afraid? This is war, not a game." Ethan, still floating in the corner, shrugged. He'd somehow snagged a chair from the cell, no one knew how, and now lounged with his legs crossed, fiddling with his busted drone. "Yeah, that's humans for you," he said, cool as ever. "We like to fight and chill at the same time. By the way, this chair's comfy. You guys should mass-produce these total bestseller." Vextor, Krezdar's aide, was losing it. "What's wrong with this kid?" he hissed, spinning to Krezdar. "We took him as a hostage, but now it feels like he's treating us like clowns." Krezdar didn't answer. He stared at the screen, where a squad of human ships rammed a Vaxilin cruiser, piercing its hull and dropping troops with ropes like a scene ripped from an 80s action flick. The battle spiraled beyond the Vaxilin's grasp. A human pilot, over a hacked comms line, shouted, "Who wants to see me drift this ship around Saturn? Bets on $50 a ticket." Cheers erupted from the human side, followed by explosions as the tiny craft spun around a Vaxilin mothership, blasting its engines with a jury-rigged rocket. Krezdar slammed a claw onto the console, rattling it. "Order the main formation to attack," he roared. "Crush them now." But before his command could take hold, another Earth signal cut, and this time a street rock band jamming Sweet Home Alabama. James Carter's voice crackled through. "Hey, shrimp freaks, your time's almost up. Get ready, 'cause we're coming." Ethan heard his dad and grinned. "Told ya," he said to Krezdar. "You poked the wrong bear. Now sit tight and watch my dad have some fun." Krezdar whipped around to glare at him, and for the first time in his storied career, real fear crept into his mind. He didn't know this war was just warming up and humanity was about to turn it into a galactic party no one would forget. The clash between humanity and the Vaxilin Empire had outgrown any standard definition of cosmic warfare. The space around the solar system was now a haze of smoke and debris, massive chunks of Vaxilin warships drifting aimlessly, explosions echoing like the soundtrack to a chaotic rock concert. Led by the Unbreakable and hundreds of other vessels, the human fleet pressed on relentlessly, turning the odds of numbers and tech into a cosmic joke. On the Dreadspire S bridge, Krezdar stood dumbfounded before the tactical display, his red eyes mirroring the endless blasts. He couldn't believe it, the invincible Vaxilin armada, which had forced countless civilizations to beg for mercy, was crumbling before him, all because of one human kid. Ethan Carter, now sprawled comfortably in a chair he'd borrowed from somewhere on the ship, yawned widely. He kept tinkering with his broken drone, occasionally glancing at the screen like a kid watching Saturday morning cartoons. "You guys should surrender already," he said, voice as chill as ever. "Once my dad gets pissed, there's no stopping him. Oh, and this drone's toast got any tools I can borrow?" Krezthar spun around, his facial claws trembling with rage and bewilderment. You still don't get it?" he roared. "Our fleet is the mightiest in the galaxy. You humans can't win." But his words lacked their usual swagger, tinged instead with a panic he didn't recognize in himself. Ethan shrugged. "Sure, you're strong, but you don't know how to have fun. Look at us fighting, chilling, even live streaming it. Take some notes." Just then, the Dread Spire shuddered violently. A massive explosion rocked the lower decks, alarms blaring like a banshee's wail. Vextor, Krezdhar's aide, lunged for the console, his clawed hands shaking as he scanned the data. "Commander," he shrieked, voice dripping with dread. "The humans, they've boarded us. They're in the main hold." The security feed flared to life, revealing an unbelievable sight. A human strike team, clad in scratched and scorched battle armor, stormed through the Dread Spire's corridors. Leading them was a towering figure with broad shoulders, gripping a smoking plasma rifle. His scarred face and steely blue eyes radiated danger. It was Admiral James Carter. He moved with lethal calm, every shot from his rifle precise, mowing down Vaxilan troops like grass. Beside him, a soldier wielded a portable speaker blasting Steppenwolfs, born to be wild, the electric guitars mingling with the sounds of blasts and the panicked cries of Vaxilan guards. "They don't fight like soldiers," Vextor muttered, his tiny eyes wide with horror. They're lunatics." A human trooper vaulted over rubble, tossing a makeshift grenade looking like a beer can wired with duct tape at a Vaxilan squad. It detonated in a burst of green smoke, followed by wild laughter from the human side. The bridge's main doors exploded inward, smoke billowing across the room. James Carter stepped through the haze, rifle still hot in his hands. He paused, locking eyes with Krezthar. "You touched my kid," he said, voice a low growl like a predator about to pounce. "Now you pay." Krezthar, a veteran of 100 foes, felt his legs tremble. He raised a clawed arm, stammering. We can negotiate," he choked out, fear gripping him for the first time. But James didn't give him a chance. He smirked a cold, unfriendly grin and pulled the trigger. A plasma bolt ripped through Krezdhar's chest, dropping him to the floor, his red eyes fading in shock and disbelief. The smoke hung thick as the final shot rang out. James lowered his rifle, stepping over Krezdhar's corpse without a second glance. He turned to Ethan, still lounging in his chair, drone in hand like nothing had happened. "What are you doing just sitting there?" James asked, half annoyed, half amused. Ethan shrugged, grinning. "Well, that guy's dead, so I guess I'm captain now. Hey, Dad, grab some pizza when we get home. That purple crap they fed me was nasty." James sighed, ruffling his son's hair. "Fine, but don't get kidnapped again. It's a damn hassle." Admiral Maria Voss's voice crackled through the comms. "Dexter, confirm, have we secured their flagship?" James surveyed the wrecked bridge. One trooper waved Krezdhar's claw as a victory flag. Another hacked the ship's speakers to blast "Sweet Home, Alabama." He chuckled. "Yeah, it's ours. Tell the fleet to mop up the rest." In the void outside, the Vaxilan fleet had collapsed. Surviving ships surrendered in a panic, commanders broadcasting pleas in broken English. "Please stop. No more smoke and fire." Another, voice trembling, held up Ethan's image on screen. "We yield. Keep that kid away. He tricked us into drinking that cursed carbonated poison." Ethan snickered. "Yeah, that was a good one." The battle ended faster than anyone expected. Humanity didn't just win with firepower, they triumphed with madness, ingenuity, and sheer defiance. One squad had ridden motorcycles launched from drop pods to board enemy ships. Another turned captured Vaxilin vessels into space hot rods with speakers and flares. This wasn't war, it was a revenge party, and the Vaxilin weren't invited. Word spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session, senators from every system sitting in stunned silence as they reviewed the battle footage. An Andoran senator whispered, "They did this over one child?" Another, voice shaking, added, "If they'll go this crazy for a kid, never piss off the whole species." On Earth, celebrations erupted. The hashtag #FreeEthan movement morphed into a global holiday, fireworks lighting the sky, street bands jamming Ethan's Revenge, a track whipped up by an indie rock group overnight. Ethan, now humanity's icon, lounged in a plush suite, soda in one hand, pizza courtesy of his dad in the other, watching James's fleet loop the moon through the window. "Those aliens thought kidnapping was a blast," he muttered, then grinned wide. "Dumbass." James sat across from him, sipping a beer. "So, how's it feel to be a galactic legend?" he asked. Ethan shrugged. "Pretty cool, I guess. But you know what'd be cooler? No school Monday." James laughed. "Keep dreaming, kid." Out in the void, the human fleet broadcast a final message across all channels. Ethan standing before the smoldering wreck of the Dread Spire, holding a sign that read, "Don't mess with Earth." The galaxy got the memo loud and clear, and no one dared forget it.